right, so let's stay in paranoia and let's just move it over to big data. There are sort of three big stories that emerged either this morning or over the weekend, and no real. I'm not going to state them in any real importance of order here, but um, first of all, Facebook's Twitter account was hacked by a Saudi hacker group called Our Mine. Okay, that's your first story. All right, and these are all you're gonna notice that all these things kind of connect back to stories that we've talked about here in the past. So the Saudis hacking Facebook's Twitter account. That's the first one. The second one is the U.S. has charged four Chinese military hackers, again hackers, um, with hacking Equifax, the credit firm. So there's another nice sort of combination there: China and Equifax. And then finally, there's some fascinating reporting out of the New York Times about a facial recognition a company, a private company called Clearview, that has essentially grabbed all of the photos in the world across the internet and created this very impressive, precise facial recognition software that is so far being used mostly by the police, and that they think has venture capitaling from Peter Thiel of Google. So yeah, if I'm going to recommend a podcast, which I don't usually, I would say check out the Daily's podcast today about Clearview and facial recognition because it's fascinating. So those are our three big data paranoia pain points. You want to start with any one of them?
Actually, they all. I mean, at a semi macro level, they all have kind of one thing in common, which is
Which is
which is the the aggressor party. Uh, I don't.
yeah,
Apparently, English is not working for me today.
no, it's fine.
Um, you have Saudi Arabia, you have China,
China,
and you have Peter
Peter
Thiel,
Thiel, yeah,
but they all are very victimy. Like they're like so
okay,
China has effectively been a victim of the West forever. Saudi Arabia is sort of like they just hacked Bezos's phone too. Like
right, right,
there is like this weird like they are they are paying attention to tech and getting at it for reasons
uh-huh.
that are not yet clear. And Peter Thiel is the one who waged a war against Gawker, and he is notorious for being kind of like a highly conservative voices get killed in social media. He's on
Right.
Facebook's board, and
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say there's a Trump connection to two of those
there's a,
stories because
there is this
Trump's
Trump connection, and there's
Trump's big growing relationship with the Saudis and with Peter Thiel and Facebook.
they all kind of are like the victims of some sort of they all are or act like aggrieved parties.
Yeah,
Even whether or not they are is I have no idea, but they all kind of like are motivated by some aggrievement, and they're all targeting the same thing, which is
okay.
like the amassing of data about
Yes,
you.
yes. Okay, let me bring it back to. I'm gonna just throw out a quote from Ali G or Borat or whoever. This is Sacha Baron Cohen, a recent quote. We don't let one person control the water for 2.5 billion people. We don't let one person control electricity for 2.5 billion people. Why do we let one man control the information seen by 2.5 billion people? So that's the other thing all these stories have in common is that uh, more and more uh, these things, and we should define things after I say this, but these things are controlled by a single people, like it's just like individuals, right? I mean, that's one of the scariest things about this Clearview story from the New York Times is that all of this is in the hands of this coder, this one man who promised the New York Times reporter in a very creepy way that he wasn't going to give it to bad agents. Like he said, "I'm not going to give it to Russia or China, so don't worry." But clearly, the takeaway is like, holy crap! Like this is just like Zuck,
Like
and
if he
obviously,
decides, it's just going
yes,
to yeah.
right, and then this is what we've come to like now. Like here are these two individuals who just kind of coded something quote unquote brilliant, and now they have all this friggin' power. And you're
Like
right. It's all about just sort of, and it's just about the data. but the breadcrumbs that people are leaving behind. It's not like he went out and bought these images. He just cut and pasted them from the internet.
But here's the thing that's that I think is misleading, because I think these companies, and we should probably end on this point because I think the story will keep going. I think these companies. I know we refer to Facebook as a fake public company all the time because Mark Zuckerberg controls all the vote. It's his company. It's not really a public company where you get to actually vote on anything.
Not even remotely.
But there are other companies, like if you just look at the social media companies, right? Twitter is not a fake public company, but they have, as we established on this show, 50% of their board basically came from Google, and the head of the nominating committee is like an ex-Googleite collecting his friends. And we saw this at Boeing. It's the same kind of thing. I know we have we want to simultaneously deify the founders and have this founder fetish, but also castigate them when they have a lot of power like Zuckerberg does. But if you get a step above that, outside of the fake public companies, I think this is why having people on your board that are have a diverse range of stakeholder experiences matters.
Yes, this is what I was going to say. This is why we beat these drums
of
diversity.
This is why you beat that drum.
It's not merely like a progressive social campaign, although it is and it can be, but there's more to it than that.
I mean, the guess what here is Twitter could share all of the data that they have on people with Russia too, right? But they have a board, and their responsibility is to both protect the company and the shareholder, and now, according to the Business Roundtable, the stakeholder, right? Which is you and me and trees and cats and whatever. Yeah. And the way that board is composed, it's really scary, and it feels really scary when it's clear view and it's effectively one 26-year-old or 30-year-old dude who's like, nah, I'm not going to sell it to Russia. Don't worry about it. Trust me.
With Peter Thiel as a backer.
With Peter Thiel as a backer, right? But Peter Thiel is on the board of Facebook. Now, do you think that if Mark Zuckerberg's surrounding himself with like-minded friends on his board, do you think there's any room for them to say, don't do that? Don't sell it to Russia. Just like if Clearview has a board and Peter Thiel is sitting on it, what do we expect to be the reality of that situation?
And this is why, politics aside, this is not a left or right issue. It's Trump's growing relationship with people like Thiel and Zuck and regimes like Russia and Saudi Arabia. This is the concern, right? I mean, forget
Trump. I feel like if anybody, what the administration recognizes is the power of that relationship, and the fact is, anyone. When I have the same reaction when Leon Cooperman comes out as a billionaire. I don't care if he self-defines as a philanthropist, right? But his idea of philanthropy is the one we have to live with, because he's the one with the billions who made it on the back of stakeholders throughout a supply chain, right? That to me is the fundamental disconnect. When you consolidate the power to make that decision, and then you do not give it effective checks and balances with a board that is diverse and thinks, right?
Right, and that's what I'm saying with Trump is, and it's not a left or right thing. Is it's about the checks and balances, right? Because the government's role used to be in this type of capitalism is that it represented through regulations, it represented that checks and balance, right? So, but now we're letting tech self-regulate. We've kind of lost that.
So I'll leave you with one stat.
Yes.
As I outro us here.
Please.
That stat is something I'm working on for future shows. I went and looked at all the boards in the U.S. and tried to figure out which of the board members had experience at the social media companies. And of the IT sector, 30% of board members worked effectively for the same 5 companies at some point in their career. Either they had a board seat there.
30%.
28%, almost 30%. So almost 1 in 3 board members have come from a single viewpoint in IT.
So another subset doing better than women.
And they're all named John.